The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 species gathered around the massive holographic display. At the center of the room stood Commander Zexitar, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the artificial light as he gestured toward the tactical readout, showing human fleet movements. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Vexani, her tentacles writhing in disbelief. No species should move their ships that close to a black hole. The gravitational forces alone would crush any rational being's courage. The display showed human vessels dancing along the event horizon of Charybdis 7, using the massive gravitational well as a slingshot to gain impossible velocities. Their formation was tight, precise, and utterly suicidal by any known military doctrine. Captain Sarah Chen sat quietly in the human delegation corner, watching the alien representatives struggle to comprehend what they were seeing. Her weathered hands remained folded, showing no emotion as species after species voiced their confusion and fear. "Reckless," hissed Diplomat Sisrath, his serpentine head swaying. "Humans throw their lives away like meaningless stones. They have no concept of self-preservation." "Perhaps," interjected Elder Korthak, his massive bear-like frame shifting in his specialized chair. "Their fearlessness comes from ignorance. Young species often lack the wisdom to recognize true danger." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several delegates nodded their various appendages, satisfied with this explanation. Humans were new to the galactic stage after all. Their reckless behavior surely stemmed from inexperience rather than any inherent courage. Captain Chen finally stood, her boots clicking against the metal floor as she approached the central platform. The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning toward the lone human representative. She was smaller than most beings present, her graying hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing a standard Earth Navy uniform that seemed plain compared to the elaborate ceremonial garments of other species. "You call us fearless," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "You call us reckless. You think we don't understand the dangers we face." Her gaze swept across the assembled delegates, meeting alien eyes that ranged from compound orbs to heat-sensing pits to electromagnetic receptors. Each species had evolved their own methods of perceiving the universe, yet none seemed able to perceive the truth about humanity. "Every human ship that danced with that black hole knew exactly what they were risking," Chen continued. "Every pilot calculated the odds of survival, understood the gravitational forces, and felt the same biological fear responses that your species experience. Their hearts raced, their palms sweated, their minds screamed warnings." The Zephyrian delegate, Koresh, tilted his elongated head. "Then why proceed? Why risk everything for a tactical advantage that more cautious approaches could achieve with time and patience?" Chen's lips curved into a slight smile, the first emotion she had shown since entering the chamber. "Because courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling that fear and choosing to act anyway." She moved toward the holographic display, her fingers dancing across the control interface. The image shifted, zooming out to show the larger tactical picture. The human fleet's impossible maneuver had allowed them to flank a massive pirate armada that had been terrorizing trade routes for months. Ships that had belonged to every species in the Council had been destroyed or captured by these raiders. While your fleets maintained safe distances and called for more negotiations, Chen said, the pirates continued their attacks. 3 Altarian colony ships were destroyed just last week. A vegan medical convoy disappeared 2 days ago. How many lives could have been saved if we had acted sooner? The chamber remained silent. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably as the tactical display highlighted recent losses to pirate activity. "You see recklessness where there is calculation," Chen continued. "You see ignorance where there is acceptance. You see fearlessness where there is simply the willingness to pay a price others will not." Commander Zextar's crystalline form chimed softly, a sign of deep thought among his species. "You speak of willingness to sacrifice, but what drives such behavior? What biological or cultural evolution created beings who can override their survival instincts so completely?" "Who are you, human?" asked Ambassador Vexani, her tentacles now still with concentration. "What manner of species produces warriors who treat death as merely another tactical consideration?" Captain Chen looked down at her uniform sleeve, where a small section of ink was barely visible beneath the fabric. For a moment she seemed to consider her words carefully. The assembled delegates leaned forward, sensing that something significant was about to be revealed. You want to understand us, she said finally, but you're asking the wrong questions. You assume our courage comes from some unique human trait, some evolutionary advantage or cultural programming that other species lack. She moved away from the display, walking closer to the assembled delegates. Her presence seemed to fill the space despite her relatively small stature. Every species here has faced predators. Every one of you has ancestors who fought for survival, who overcame impossible odds, who found strength when none seemed to exist. The capacity for courage lives in all of us. Then what makes humans different? Pressed Elder Korthak. What allows your species to access this courage when others cannot? Chen's smile widened, and for the first time there was something almost predatory in her expression. The difference isn't in our courage. The difference is in our understanding of what we truly are. She reached for her sleeve, beginning to roll up the fabric. The delegates watched with growing fascination as more of her forearm became visible. You see individual humans making individual choices to be brave, she said. You think we overcome our fears through personal willpower or cultural conditioning. You study our tactics, our technology, our political systems, trying to understand how we can be so fearless. The fabric continued to roll back, revealing intricate black ink patterns etched into her skin. But you've never asked the most important question, Chen said, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that made several delegates unconsciously lean back. You've never asked what we learned from our first predators. You've never asked what shaped us before we reached the stars. The tattoo was becoming clearer now, not just random patterns, but carefully crafted images that told a story older than human civilization itself. You call us fearless, Chen said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper that somehow carried perfectly through the vast chamber. But fearlessness implies the absence of danger. We're not fearless. She paused, letting the tension build as the assembled aliens waited for her revelation. We're something much more dangerous than that. The silence in the chamber stretched like a taut wire as Captain Chen finished rolling up her sleeve. What the delegates saw etched into her skin was not what they had expected. Instead of abstract human art or military insignia, the tattoo depicted a scene that seemed to pulse with ancient memory. A massive wolf stood in profile, its head raised toward an unseen moon, surrounded by intricate tribal patterns that spoke of ceremonies conducted around fires under starlit skies. But it was not just the wolf that captured their attention. It was the way human figures were woven throughout the design. Not as masters or servants, but as equals standing alongside the great predator. Beautiful artwork, commented Diplomat Sisrath, though his tone suggested he found it primitive rather than impressive. Many species decorate their bodies with images of creatures from their homeworld. Chen laughed, a sound that held no humor. You still don't understand. This isn't decoration. This is a reminder. She moved closer to the holographic display, her tattooed arm extended so the alien delegates could see the intricate details more clearly. Every human child learns the story, but most never truly comprehend what it means. We think it's just ancient history, mythology, stories told around campfires. The wolf's eyes in the tattoo seemed to gleam as the light hit them at different angles. The detail was extraordinary, each hair individually rendered, each tribal symbol precisely placed. 40,000 years ago, Chen began, my ancestors lived in small groups, barely surviving in a world filled with creatures far stronger, faster and better adapted than they were. Cave bears that could crush skulls with a casual swipe. Saber-toothed cats with reflexes faster than human eyes could track. Massive predators that ruled the night while humans huddled around fires hoping to see another dawn. Ambassador Vexani's tentacles swayed with interest, a common evolutionary pattern. Most species begin as prey before developing the intelligence to become apex predators themselves. No, Chen said firmly, that's where you're wrong. Humans never became apex predators. We became something else entirely. She touched the tattoo reverently, tracing the outline of the wolf with her finger. In those ancient times, there was another species struggling to survive alongside us. Wolves were pack hunters, but the climate was changing. Prey was becoming scarce, and their traditional hunting grounds were shrinking. The chamber remained completely silent. Every delegate focused on the human captain's words. Two species, both struggling, both intelligent in different ways, Chen continued. Humans with their tools and fire, but lacking the strength and speed needed for the hunt. Wolves with their pack coordination and predatory instincts, but unable to adapt quickly to environmental changes. She turned away from the display to face the assembled aliens directly. What would your species have done in such a situation? Competition for resources usually leads to conflict, with one species driving out or eliminating the other. Elder Korthak nodded his massive head. Standard evolutionary pressure. The stronger or more adaptable species survives. But humans and wolves did something unprecedented, Chen said, her voice growing stronger. Instead of competing, they chose to cooperate. Not as master and servant, not as dominant and submissive, but as equal partners in survival. The tattoo seemed to tell this story, showing humans and wolves standing side by side, neither above nor below the other. It was a partnership depicted in ink and skin, a bond that transcended simple domestication. The wolves brought their pack hunting skills, their enhanced senses, their ability to track prey across vast distances, Chen explained. Humans brought their tools, their fire, their capacity for long-term planning and problem-solving. Commander Zextar's crystalline form chimed softly. An interesting historical alliance, but many species form temporary partnerships for mutual benefit. What makes this significant? Chen's smile returned, and again there was that predatory gleam in her eyes. Because it wasn't temporary. The partnership lasted, evolved, deepened over thousands of generations. Wolves changed, becoming dogs, adapting to human society while retaining their essential nature. Humans changed too, learning pack dynamics, loyalty concepts, and hunting strategies that had never existed in primate behavior. She began pacing, her movements somehow more fluid than they had been before, as if telling this story had awakened something ancient in her posture and gait. We learned to hunt together, Chen continued. Not just to hunt prey, but to hunt dangers. When threats emerged that were too powerful for either species alone, humans and wolves faced them as one unit. A pack that combined intelligence and instinct, tools and teeth, planning and aggression. The alien delegates were beginning to understand, though none wanted to voice what they were thinking. The implications of a species that had learned pack behavior from apex predators were staggering. You see, Chen said, stopping her pacing to face them directly. When you observe human military tactics, you're not seeing the strategies of former prey animals who developed intelligence. You're seeing pack hunting behaviors refined over 40,000 years of partnership with wolves. She gestured toward the tactical display showing the human fleet's maneuver around the black hole. That wasn't reckless individual courage. That was pack coordination. Every pilot knew their role, trusted their packmates, and understood that the success of the hunt was more important than individual survival. Diplomat Sesrath's serpentine form coiled nervously. You speak as if humans still consider themselves part of this ancient pack structure. Consider ourselves? Chen laughed again, that sound devoid of humor. We don't consider ourselves part of it, we are it. Every human carries the genetic memory of 40,000 years of hunting alongside apex predators. Every human child learns pack loyalty before they learn to walk properly. The chamber's atmosphere had changed subtly. What had begun as academic curiosity was becoming something approaching unease among the alien delegates. The pirates, your species have been negotiating with for months, Chen said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried perfectly. They made a mistake. They attacked the pack. She rolled her sleeve down, covering the wolf tattoo, but somehow its presence felt even stronger now that it was hidden. And when you attack the pack, Chen said, the pack hunts you. The tactical display flickered and new information appeared. It showed not just the recent human fleet movement, but a pattern of coordinated activities across multiple sectors. Human ships, human intelligence networks, human diplomatic contacts, all moving with a precision that spoke of something far more organized than individual military commands. How many ships? Whispered Ambassador Vexani. How many humans? Chen countered. Because once the pack decides to hunt, every human becomes part of the hunt. Every human ship, every human station, every human colony. We don't just mobilize our military. She paused, letting the implications sink in. We mobilize our pack. The holographic display updated in real time, showing a web of human activity that stretched across known space like a vast neural network. Trade ships altered their routes to become intelligence gatherers. Mining stations began monitoring communications frequencies they had no business accessing. Even human civilians on vacation seemed to be positioning themselves in strategically important locations. This is impossible. Commander Zextar's crystalline voice carried a tremor of disbelief. No species can coordinate this level of activity without centralized command structure. The logistics alone would require computational resources that exceed our understanding of human capabilities. Captain Chen watched the alien delegates study the display, their various sensory organs working overtime to process what they were seeing. Some appeared fascinated, others disturbed, but all were beginning to comprehend that they had fundamentally misunderstood something crucial about humanity. "You're still thinking like prey species," Chen said calmly. "You're looking for command structures, hierarchies, orders being passed down from central authority. That's not how pack hunters work." She approached the display and gestured to highlight a particular cluster of activity. "Watch this sector. 3 days ago, a human freighter captain named Marcus Rodriguez was delivering grain to the Altarian colonies. He heard about the pirate attacks on the colony ships from his Altarian contacts." The display zoomed in, showing the freighter's path changing subtly, deviating from its planned route to pass through a system that had previously been considered irrelevant to the larger conflict. "Rodriguez didn't receive orders from Earth Command," Chen continued. "He didn't file a mission change request or wait for approval from any military authority. He simply altered his course because he detected prey." The delegates watched as Rodriguez's freighter began transmitting on seemingly random frequencies, its sensors suddenly operating far beyond normal commercial parameters. "Within 6 hours," Chen said, 17 other human vessels in that sector had modified their activities. Not because they were ordered to, but because they received Rodriguez's signal and recognized it for what it was. "What signal?" demanded Elder Korthik. "Our communications monitoring detected no unusual transmissions." Chen's smile was beginning to make several delegates uncomfortable. "You monitored human communications, but you never learned to hear pack language. Rodriguez wasn't broadcasting words or data. He was broadcasting intent." She touched a control, and the display shifted to show communication patterns between human vessels. Instead of the formal military channels or commercial frequencies the aliens expected, they saw something that resembled biological neural networks more than technological systems. "A wolf doesn't need to howl instructions to its pack," Chen explained. "The pack knows from tone, duration, and subtle frequency variations whether the call means prey sighted, danger approaching, eat or gather for the hunt." Humans learned this language 40,000 years ago. Diplomat Sisrath's coils were now tight with anxiety. "You're suggesting that humans communicate through methods that our most advanced, xenolinguistic programs cannot detect or decode?" "Not suggesting," Chen replied. "Demonstrating." She raised her hand to her throat and made a sound that was barely audible to the alien delegates. It lasted perhaps 3 seconds and seemed to contain no meaningful information. Yet, within moments, every human in the chamber had subtly shifted their posture, their attention focusing with laser intensity on something beyond the chamber walls. "What did you just tell them?" Ambassador Vexani's tentacles were writhing with barely controlled fear. "I told them the hunt was beginning," Chen said simply. "And they responded the same way wolves respond when the alpha signals that prey has been located." The holographic display continued to update, showing human activity patterns across the galaxy, growing more coordinated with each passing hour. But now the delegates could see something they had missed before. The coordination wasn't flowing from any central point. Instead, it was emerging organically from millions of individual decisions that somehow formed a coherent whole. "Impossible," whispered Commander Zextar. "Individual intelligence cannot create collective behavior this complex without communication infrastructure that we can detect and analyze." "You keep using that word," Chen said. "Impossible, but you're watching it happen. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is why your species never developed this capability." She gestured toward the assembled delegates. "Look at yourselves. 47 different species, each with their own evolutionary path, their own survival strategies, their own methods of organizing society. But you all have one thing in common." The aliens waited, though several seemed reluctant to hear what Chen was going to say. "You all survived by becoming apex predators individually," she continued. "Your intelligence evolved to make you better hunters, better fighters, better at dominating your environment through personal capability." Chen's pacing had taken on a different quality now, more fluid, more purposeful, like a predator circling its prey. "Humans took a different path. We survived by becoming better pack members, Our intelligence didn't evolve to make us individually superior. It evolved to make us collectively unstoppable. The display showed a new development that made several delegates gasp in shock. Human fleets were not just coordinating their movements. They were beginning to move in patterns that resembled the hunting strategies of Earth's wolf packs on a galactic scale. The Kepler formation, Chen said, noting their recognition. Wolves use it when hunting large prey that could kill individual pack members. Some wolves drive the prey toward others who lie in wait. Some circle to cut off escape routes. Others position themselves to exploit whatever weaknesses the prey reveals during the chase. The pirates, Elder Korthak said slowly. You're hunting the pirates using wolf pack tactics. We're not just hunting the pirates, Chen corrected. We're hunting every threat to the pack, and the pack now includes every species that has been victimized by pirate activity. The implications of this statement hung in the air like a physical presence. The alien delegates were beginning to understand that they had not simply witnessed human military action. They had witnessed the awakening of something far older and more dangerous. You consider us part of your pack? Asked Ambassador Vexani, her voice barely above a whisper. Chen's expression softened slightly, showing something that might have been warmth. You called for help. You asked the Galactic Council to address the pirate threat, but your own species were too cautious to act effectively. In pack terms, your injured packmates unable to hunt for themselves. She gestured toward the display, where human forces were now moving with purpose that transcended normal military coordination. So the pack hunts for you, not because we expect reward or gratitude, but because that's what pack members do for each other. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this revelation. They were not witnessing human fearlessness or recklessness or ignorance. They were witnessing the emergence of a collective consciousness that had been shaped by 40,000 years of cooperation with apex predators. The question now, Chen said, her voice carrying a weight that made every alien present focus entirely on her words, is what happens when the hunt is finished. She looked directly at each delegate in turn, her gaze holding theirs for long enough to communicate something that transcended language. Because the pack remembers everything. The pack remembers who helped, who hindered, and who simply watched while packmates were in danger. The holographic display updated one final time, showing human forces now positioned throughout known space in patterns that would make any military strategist weep with envy. But more importantly, it showed that these forces were no longer operating as individual units. They had become something larger, something that moved with unified purpose across vast distances without any detectable command structure. We hunt together, Chen said simply, echoing the words from her tattoo. Always together. Always as one pack. The delegates now understood why humans seemed fearless. They weren't individuals overcoming personal fear through courage or recklessness. They were pack members drawing strength from 40,000 years of collective identity, supported by the knowledge that they never hunted alone. 3 hours after Captain Chen's revelation, the Galactic Council chamber had become something resembling a crisis command center. Delegates huddled in species-specific groups, their various forms of communication, creating a cacophony of sounds, smells, and electromagnetic emissions that spoke of deep unease. The holographic display continued its relentless update cycle, showing human forces converging on pirate strongholds with precision that defied conventional military understanding. But what disturbed the alien observers most was not the tactical efficiency, it was the silence. No communications, Commander Zextar announced to his crystalline subordinates. Our most sophisticated listening arrays detect nothing resembling operational coordination between human vessels. Yet their movements show integration levels that should require constant data exchange. At the other side of the chamber, Ambassador Vexani was experiencing a similar revelation. Our xenopsychology experts have analyzed human behavior patterns for decades, she told her tentacled assistants. We cataloged their emotional responses, their decision-making processes, their social hierarchies. But we never identified this collective consciousness capability. Captain Chen sat quietly in the human section, seemingly unaffected by the growing tension around her. She had removed her jacket, and now other tattoos were visible on her arms, a constellation of designs that told stories of human partnership with creatures that had shaped their evolution. A soaring eagle, a loyal dog, a diving dolphin. Each image was surrounded by symbols that spoke of cooperation rather than dominance. Diplomat Sis-Arath approached the human section with obvious reluctance. His serpentine form moved in the careful patterns that indicated deep respect among his people, but also wariness of potential danger. "Captain Chen," he said formally, "my government has instructed me to request clarification on human intentions regarding interspecies relations going forward." Chen looked up from the data pad she had been studying. "Your government is concerned that humans might consider other species as prey rather than packmates?" "The concern exists, yes." Chen stood and gestured toward the holographic display, where human forces were now engaging pirate vessels in dozens of systems simultaneously. The battles were brief and decisive, with human ships working in coordinated groups that overwhelmed their opponents through tactics that no single captain could have devised alone. "Watch how we fight," she said simply. "We don't destroy enemy ships when we can disable them. We don't execute prisoners when we can rehabilitate them. We don't claim territory when we can share resources." Indeed, the tactical display showed human forces capturing, rather than destroying pirate vessels whenever possible. Crews were being taken prisoner, but intelligence reports suggested they were being treated according to galactic conventions rather than being subjected to the harsh justice that pirate activity typically warranted. "Pack hunters don't kill for sport," Chen continued. "They kill for survival and protection. Once the threat is neutralized, the killing stops." Elder Korthak lumbered over from his position near the chamber's environmental controls. His massive form moved with surprising grace, though his breathing was labored in the oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that humans preferred. "Your pack concept troubles my people," he said bluntly. "Bears are solitary creatures. We understand individual strength, individual responsibility, individual survival. This collective consciousness you describe sounds like loss of personal identity." Chen smiled, and for the first time since her revelation, the expression seemed genuinely warm rather than predatory. "You misunderstand what pack means to humans. We don't lose our individuality. We enhance it through cooperation." She pointed to different human officers scattered throughout the chamber. "Lieutenant Morrison over there is our best pilot. He can maneuver a fighter through asteroid fields that would kill any other human. Sergeant Kim is a tactical genius who sees patterns that escape our best AI systems. Dr. Walsh understands xenobiology better than most non-humans understand their own species." Each officer nodded as Chen mentioned them, but they remained focused on their various tasks rather than seeking attention or recognition. "In your species," Chen continued, "individual excellence might create competition, jealousy, hierarchy struggles. In human pack structure, individual excellence strengthens the entire group. Morrison's piloting skills make Kim's tactics more effective. Kim's strategic thinking gives Walsh better opportunities to apply her medical knowledge. Walsh's understanding of different species makes Morrison a better pilot when working with alien technology." The concept was elegant in its simplicity, but its implications were staggering. A species where individual achievement automatically benefited the collective would have capabilities that exceeded the sum of its parts. "How do you prevent conflicts?" asked Ambassador Vexani. "Individual desires must sometimes contradict collective needs. The same way wolves prevent conflicts," Chen replied. "Through pack structure that everyone understands and accepts. But human pack structure isn't based on dominance hierarchies like you might expect." She gestured toward the holographic display, where the tactical situation was developing with stunning rapidity. Human forces had located the primary pirate base, a massive asteroid fortress that had been considered impregnable by conventional military analysis. "Watch the attack pattern," Chen instructed. "Tell me who you think is in command." The delegate studied the display intently. Dozens of human ships were approaching the pirate stronghold from multiple directions, their movements coordinated with precision that suggested elaborate planning and flawless execution. But as they watched more carefully, something strange became apparent. "There's no flagship," Commander Zextar observed. "No command vessel directing the operation. No central coordination point at all," added Diplomat Sis-Arath. "Each group of ships operates independently, yet their actions complement the others perfectly." "How is this possible?" demanded Elder Korthak. Chen's smile widened. "Because the pack doesn't follow orders from an alpha. The pack follows the hunt." She moved to the display controls and highlighted different aspects of the human formation. Every human commander understands the objective: neutralize the pirate threat. Every human pilot knows their own capabilities and limitations. Every human crew member trusts their packmates to fulfill their roles. The attack was unfolding like a carefully choreographed dance. Human ships moved in response to changing conditions, adapting their tactics in real time without any apparent communication between vessels. The pack leadership rotates based on situation and expertise, Chen continued. When piloting skills are most crucial, pilots like Morrison take point. When tactical analysis is needed, strategists like Kim become focal points. When medical treatment is required, doctors like Walsh take charge. But who makes final decisions? Pressed Ambassador Vexani. Who bears ultimate responsibility? Everyone, Chen said simply. That's what pack membership means. Every human takes responsibility for the success of the hunt and the safety of their packmates. The display showed the pirate fortress beginning to return fire, but their defensive strategy was already obsolete. They were fighting individual human ships as separate threats, not recognizing that they faced a single organism with dozens of bodies. The pirates are about to learn something important, Chen said, her voice carrying that predatory undertone that made several delegates unconsciously step back. They're not fighting 43 human ships. They're fighting one pack. As if responding to her words, the human attack pattern shifted dramatically. Ships that had been approaching from different vectors suddenly moved in perfect synchronization, creating a three-dimensional formation that surrounded the asteroid fortress completely. The movement was so fluid and instantaneous that it resembled biological reflex more than military maneuver. Impossible coordination, whispered Commander Zextar. The communication delays alone should make such precise timing unachievable. Unless, said Chen quietly, they're not communicating with technology at all. The pirate fortress launched a massive counterattack, sending thousands of missiles and energy blasts toward the human formation. But instead of scattering or seeking individual cover, the human ships moved as one entity, each vessel positioning itself to protect others while maintaining offensive capability. It was like watching a single organism with multiple appendages respond to threat. No individual ship tried to maximize its own survival at the expense of others. Instead, each vessel found the position where it could best contribute to the collective defense while maintaining the integrity of the attack formation. They're not just coordinated, Elder Korthak said slowly. They're connected, truly connected in ways that our technology cannot detect or understand. Captain Chen nodded. 40,000 years of genetic memory, 40,000 years of pack hunting, 40,000 years of survival through cooperation with apex predators. The pirate counterattack was failing. Their weapons were designed to fight individual ships making individual tactical decisions. Against a collective consciousness operating dozens of vessels as extensions of a single will, their defensive strategy was not just inadequate, it was irrelevant. The pirate fortress fell in 18 minutes. The alien delegates watched in stunned silence as the supposedly impregnable asteroid stronghold surrendered without a single human ship being destroyed. The defensive installations that had held off 3 different alien military expeditions were systematically neutralized by tactics that seemed to anticipate every possible response before it occurred. Casualty report. Commander Zextar requested from his crystalline subordinates. Human losses: 0 killed, 14 wounded. All injuries classified as minor. Pirate losses: 47 killed, over 3,000 captured alive. Civilian hostages all recovered safely. The numbers were almost insulting in their disparity. Military engagements between comparable forces typically resulted in substantial losses on both sides, even for the victor. But the human pack had achieved total victory while suffering casualties so minimal, they barely registered as statistics. How? Elder Korthak's massive form seemed to deflate as he struggled to comprehend what he had witnessed. Our strategic analyst estimated that assault would require 6 months of siege, operations, and result in at least 30% casualties for the attacking force. Captain, Chen was reading reports on her data pad, but her expression showed no surprise at the outcome. The pirates fought like your analysts expected them to fight, against individual ship commanders making individual tactical decisions. They prepared defenses against human military doctrine as understood by non-humans. She looked up from her device, meeting the alien delegates' various sensory organs directly. But we didn't fight as individual ships. We fought as a pack. Their defensive strategy was based on incorrect assumptions about human nature. Ambassador Vexani's tentacles were writhing with barely controlled agitation. Your pack consciousness allows for tactical capabilities that our military science considers theoretically impossible. How do we defend against an enemy that operates through methods we cannot detect, predict, or counter? You don't, Chen said simply. But you also don't need to, unless you give the pack reason to consider you a threat. The holographic display updated to show the aftermath of the battle. Human forces were already organizing relief efforts for rescued hostages, medical treatment for wounded pirates, and processing of captured enemy personnel. But more importantly, they were beginning to disperse, returning to their original missions as if the coordinated assault had been nothing more than a brief interruption in their normal activities. This dispersal pattern is also unprecedented, observed diplomat Sisrath. Military forces typically maintain formation after successful operations, securing the captured territory and consolidating their victory. Pack hunters don't claim territory, Chen replied. They eliminate threats to the pack's survival and then return to normal behavior patterns. The asteroid fortress will be turned over to galactic authorities for processing. The humans have no interest in occupying it. But even as she spoke, the delegates could see that something fundamental had changed. The human ships dispersing from the battle site were not simply returning to their previous activities. They were repositioning themselves throughout known space in patterns that would give them unprecedented ability to respond to future threats. You're establishing a perimeter, Commander Zextar realized. Not around territory, but around everything. Every trade route, every colony system, every strategic resource point. Chen's smile returned. And once again it carried that predatory quality that made the alien delegates uncomfortable. The pack protects what the pack considers important. And after today's events, the pack has decided that galactic civilization itself is worth protecting. The implications of this statement settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The alien delegates were beginning to understand that they had not simply witnessed a military operation. They had witnessed humanity's decision to extend its pack protection to include every peaceful species in known space. The perimeter isn't around human territory, Chen continued. It's around civilization itself. Any threat to any member species will now be considered a threat to the pack. Elder Korthak's breathing had become more labored, and not just from the atmospheric conditions. You're proposing to make humanity the guardians of galactic peace. Who granted you this authority? The same authority that granted wolves the right to protect their pack, Chen replied. The authority of superior predators taking responsibility for the safety of their community. She gestured toward the display, where human ships were indeed establishing what could only be described as a protective perimeter around all inhabited systems. But the pattern was subtle, disguised as normal commercial and exploratory activities. To casual observation, it would appear that humans were simply expanding their presence throughout the galaxy for economic reasons. You fear human domination, Chen said, addressing the unspoken concern that radiated from every alien delegate. You think we intend to rule over other species, to impose human will on galactic civilization. She moved closer to the assembled delegates, her presence somehow seeming larger than her physical form. But pack leaders don't rule through domination. They lead through example, through competence, through willingness to take responsibility for the pack's welfare. The holographic display shifted to show a different view of recent events. Instead of focusing on military movements, it now displayed humanitarian activities. Human medical ships were already en route to systems where pirate attacks had left civilian casualties. Human engineering vessels were beginning repair operations on damaged infrastructure. Human diplomatic missions were reaching out to species that had been isolated by pirate activity. We're not establishing an empire, Chen said. We're extending the pack. Ambassador Vexani's tentacles had stopped their agitated writhing, and were now moving in the slow, thoughtful patterns that indicated deep consideration among her species. This pack structure you describe, it requires trust. How do we know that human protective instincts won't become human possessive instincts? Chen rolled up her other sleeve, revealing another tattoo that had been hidden until now. This one showed a different scene. Humans and wolves working together to defend a mixed group of various Earth animals from a massive predator. The humans in the image were not fighting for dominance over the other creatures, but fighting alongside them. Each species contributing their unique capabilities to the common defense. Because that's not how pack protection works, she said. When wolves defend their territory, they don't enslave the deer and rabbits they protect from other predators. They create an environment where all pack members can thrive according to their nature. The tactical display updated again, showing long-term projections based on current human positioning. If the patterns continued, human forces would soon be capable of responding to threats anywhere in known space within days, rather than months. But the projections also showed something else. Human activities were creating protected zones where other species could develop and expand without fear of pirate raids or external threats. Your species will be free to grow according to your own cultural values and evolutionary patterns, Chen continued. But you'll grow under pack protection. Threats to your development will be dealt with by pack members who specialize in dealing with threats. Commander Zextar's crystalline form was ringing with harmonics that indicated deep thought among his people. You speak of pack membership as if it's optional. What happens to species that decline to join this extended pack? Chen's expression grew serious, losing the predatory edge that had characterized much of her presentation. Nothing happens to them, as long as they don't threaten pack members. Pack protection is offered, not imposed, but once offered and declined, it won't be offered again. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. They were being presented with a choice that would define their species' relationship with humanity for generations to come. Accept pack membership and receive protection that had proven to be devastatingly effective, or maintain independence and face future threats without human assistance. There's something else you need to understand, Chen said, her voice taking on a tone that commanded absolute attention. The pack bonds we're offering aren't temporary political alliances. They're not treaties that can be broken when circumstances change. She touched the wolf tattoo on her arm, tracing the intricate patterns that surrounded the central image. When humans commit to pack membership, we commit for life. Your species' welfare becomes as important to us as human welfare. Your threats become our threats. Your victories become our victories. The weight of this promise was staggering. Military alliances could be dissolved. Trade agreements could be renegotiated. Political relationships could evolve with changing circumstances. But Chen was describing something that transcended normal diplomatic arrangements. 40,000 years ago, she said quietly, humans made this same commitment to wolves. Despite massive changes in technology, society, and environment, that commitment has never been broken. The dogs in human homes today are still considered pack members, still protected, still loved, still trusted with human children. She looked directly at each delegate in turn, her gaze holding theirs long enough to communicate the full significance of what she was saying. When humans offer pack membership, we're offering the same relationship we've maintained with our oldest allies. Permanent, unbreakable, based on mutual benefit rather than temporary convenience. The holographic display flickered once more, showing the current positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. But now the delegates could see the true scope of what was being offered. Not just protection from immediate threats, but integration into a network of mutual support that spanned star systems and would endure for millennia. The question before this council, Chen said, is whether your species are ready to accept pack membership with all its benefits and responsibilities. She paused, allowing the full weight of the decision to settle over the assembled delegates. Because once you're part of the pack, you're part of it forever. And the pack never abandons its own. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. For nearly an hour, delegates from 47 species sat in contemplative silence, processing the implications of humanity's offer. The holographic display continued its updates, showing human forces settling into their new positions throughout known space, but the military movement seemed almost secondary to the magnitude of the decision facing each species. Ambassador Vexani was the first to break the silence. Her tentacles moved in the formal patterns that indicated she was speaking for her entire government, not just expressing personal opinion. The Altarian Coalition has experienced humanity's pack protection firsthand, she said carefully. When our colony ships were attacked, we sent distress signals to every member species of this council. We received sympathy, offers of future assistance, and requests for more detailed information that would have taken months to provide. She gestured toward Captain Chen with movements that spoke of deep respect. Humans received the same distress signal and responded immediately. Not with questions about jurisdiction or requests for formal authorization, but with ships and weapons and willingness to risk their lives for people they had never met. The chamber remained silent, but the quality of attention had shifted. Other delegates were now listening not just to words, but to the emotional undertones that revealed how the Altarian experience had affected their perception of humanity. Our psychological profiles suggested that humans were reckless, driven by emotional responses rather than logical analysis, Vexani continued. But we were wrong. Human response to our crisis was not emotional recklessness. It was pack loyalty extending to include species that humans had never considered allies. Commander Zextar's crystalline form chimed softly, indicating he wished to speak. The crystalline hegemonies have also benefited from unexpected human assistance. When our mining operations in the Outer Rim were disrupted by the same pirate forces, human traders in the area immediately began sharing intelligence and resources without being asked. His harmonics shifted to frequencies that indicated deep contemplation among his people. We assumed this was normal human behavior toward potential business partners. But Captain Chen's explanation suggests it was pack instinct recognizing that our welfare affected galactic stability. Elder Korthak's massive form shifted in his specialized chair. The Bear clans have always valued independence above security. We prefer to face threats alone rather than depend on others for protection. His breathing was still labored, but his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. However, independence becomes meaningless if the threats are too powerful to face alone. The pirate assault that humans neutralized in 18 minutes had been growing for 2 years. Our own defensive capabilities were proving inadequate. Chen listened to each species representative without comment, but her posture indicated she was evaluating not just their words but their underlying emotional states. Pack leaders needed to understand the motivations and concerns of potential pack members before formal bonds could be established. Diplomat Sisarath spoke next. His serpentine form coiled in patterns that suggested internal conflict. The Reptilian Congress has historically viewed cooperation with suspicion. Our evolutionary path favored individual cunning over group coordination. He paused, his tongue tasting the air in the way his species used to gather environmental information. But individual cunning becomes irrelevant when facing collective consciousness that operates at the level humans have demonstrated. We can either adapt our approach to interspecies relations or risk being excluded from the dominant protective network in known space. The honesty of this admission seemed to break something loose in the chamber's atmosphere. Other delegates began speaking more freely, expressing concerns and considerations that had been building throughout the day's revelations. Pack membership requires trust, said the delegate from the Aquatic Republics, her translated voice carrying through the chamber's speakers. How do we reconcile this with the competitive nature of interspecies trade and resource allocation? Chen smiled, and for the first time that day, the expression seemed genuinely warm rather than predatory. Pack members don't compete with each other. They complement each other. Human economic theory is about to become much more interesting. She gestured toward the holographic display, which shifted to show projected economic models based on pack cooperation rather than competitive trade. When pack members specialize in what they do best and share resources freely, the total productive capacity exceeds what individual competition can achieve, she explained. Altarian agricultural techniques could revolutionize food production throughout human space. Crystalline technological precision could enhance human manufacturing capabilities. Reptilian individual cunning could improve human intelligence operations. The economic projections were staggering. Species that had been competing for limited resources could instead be cooperating to expand total available resources exponentially. But what about species autonomy? Asked the Aerial Federation delegate. Pack structure implies hierarchy and submission to pack leadership. Human pack structure doesn't work that way, Chen replied. The pack follows expertise, not hierarchy. When medical knowledge is needed, doctors lead. When piloting skills are crucial, pilots lead. When diplomatic finesse is required, diplomats lead. She pointed to different sections of the chamber where human officers were working with alien technical specialists, sharing information and resources, with no apparent concern for species rank or authority. Each species would contribute their strengths to pack welfare while maintaining their own cultural identity and internal governance, Chen continued. Humans don't want to rule other species. We want to hunt alongside them. The debate continued for hours, but gradually a consensus began to emerge. Species after species acknowledged that the benefits of pack membership outweighed the risks of maintaining independence in a galaxy where threats could emerge that exceeded any individual species' defensive capabilities. Finally, Ambassador Vexani spoke again, her tentacles moving in the formal patterns that indicated binding governmental commitment. The Altarian Coalition accepts pack membership with humanity, with all benefits and responsibilities that such membership entails. Commander Zextar's crystalline form rang with harmonics that translated to formal agreement. The crystalline hegemonies also accept pack membership. One by one, 46 of the 47 species represented in the chamber announced their acceptance of humanity's offer. Only the solitary wanderers, a species that had evolved in the deep space between stars and had never formed permanent settlements, declined pack membership while expressing respect for the choice others were making. Captain Chen watched this historic moment unfold with an expression that seemed to contain 40,000 years of genetic memory. When the last acceptance had been announced, she stood and rolled up both sleeves, revealing the full scope of her tattoos. The images told the complete story of human evolution, not just wolves, but every species that had shaped humanity's development through cooperation rather than domination. Eagles that had taught humans to see from great heights, dolphins that had taught humans to navigate vast oceans, dogs that had taught humans loyalty, horses that had taught humans endurance. "Welcome to the pack," she said simply. "We hunt together now, always together." The holographic display updated one final time, showing human forces throughout the galaxy in their new roles, not as conquerors or rulers, but as guardians of a galactic community that had chosen cooperation over competition. For the first time in recorded history, an entire galaxy had decided to hunt together. 6 months later, the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. Captain Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching mixed-species crews work together with an efficiency that defied every previous model of interspecies cooperation. Altarian agricultural specialists were teaching human farmers techniques that had tripled food production. Crystalline engineers were working with human manufacturers to create technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Reptilian intelligence operatives were sharing information networks that had eliminated piracy in 17 sectors. But more importantly, something fundamental had changed in how the various species interacted with each other. The competitive tensions that had characterized galactic politics for centuries had been replaced by something that resembled the pack loyalty Chen had described in the council chamber. "Remarkable," said Dr. Elizabeth Walsh, approaching with a data pad full of xenobiological reports. "The physiological changes are measurable. Species that accept pack membership are showing altered stress hormone levels, improved immune responses, and enhanced cognitive function when working in mixed groups." Chen smiled, watching an Altarian engineer and a human pilot work together to solve a navigation problem that had puzzled both species for months. Pack membership has biological benefits. Wolves discovered that 40,000 years ago. The observation deck provided a panoramic view of the galaxy's new reality. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to pirate activity were now bustling with commerce. Scientific research stations staffed by multiple species were making discoveries at unprecedented rates. Even diplomatic disputes between non-human species were being resolved more quickly, as pack mediators helped find solutions that served everyone's interests. "The economic projections have been exceeded by 400%, reported Lieutenant Morrison, joining them at the viewing portal. "Cooperative resource development is generating wealth faster than our models predicted possible." Chen nodded, but her attention was focused on something else visible through the transparent aluminum. A new ship was approaching Unity Station, sleek, elegant, and unlike anything in the database of known vessel designs. "Unknown contact approaching on Vector 77 Mark IV, came the announcement over the station's communication system. "Configuration suggests possible first contact scenario." Within minutes, the station's alert status had shifted to yellow. Mixed-species crews moved to their positions with the fluid coordination that had become the hallmark of pack operations. But there was no panic, no competitive jockeying for authority between different species' military protocols. Hailing frequencies open, reported Sergeant Kim from the communications center. They're broadcasting what appears to be mathematical progressions, standard first contact protocols. Chen made her way to the station's command center, where representatives from a dozen species were working together to analyze the newcomer's signals and prepare for potential first contact. The sight would have been impossible just months earlier, former competitors now collaborating seamlessly in a situation that could affect the entire galaxy's future. Analysis complete, announced the crystalline tactical officer. Single vessel, advanced propulsion system, no apparent weapons, but technology level exceeds our current understanding. Life signs? Asked Dr. Walsh. Present but unrecognizable biosignatures. Definitely a new species. Chen studied the tactical display showing the approaching vessel. It was moving with purpose but not aggression, maintaining a trajectory that would bring it to Unity Station while clearly signaling peaceful intentions. Open a channel, she ordered. The view screen flickered, then resolved into an image that made every sentient being in the command center pause in amazement. The creature they were seeing was unlike anything in their xenobiological databases, tall, graceful, with features that seemed to shift between different configurations as they watched. Greetings, the alien said, speaking in perfect galactic standard, despite having no previous contact with their civilization. We are the Shapers. We have been observing your recent evolution. Ambassador Vexani, who was serving as the station's diplomatic coordinator, stepped forward. Welcome to Unity Station. I am Ambassador Vexani, representing the Galactic Pack Alliance. We greet you in peace and hope for mutual understanding. The alien's features shifted into what might have been a smile. Galactic Pack Alliance. An interesting designation. We have been waiting for your species to achieve this level of cooperation for a very long time. Waiting? Chen stepped into view of the communications pickup. How long have you been observing us? Since the first human made alliance with the first wolf, the Shaper replied. We have been watching to see if any species would develop true cooperative consciousness. Most achieve individual intelligence and then destroy themselves through competition. You have achieved something far more rare. The command center fell silent as the implications of this statement became clear. They were being contacted by a species that had been observing galactic civilization since humanity's earliest evolutionary steps. We are not the first to achieve pack consciousness? Asked Elder Korthak, his massive form filling a corner of the command center. You are the 13th, the Shaper said. But you are the first to extend pack consciousness beyond your own species. Most who achieve cooperative consciousness remain isolated within their original pack. You have created something unprecedented. The alien's form continued to shift, and now they could see that the changes were intentional. The Shaper was adjusting their appearance to be less intimidating. To the various species present, we offer you entry into a larger pack, the Shaper continued. A galactic community of species who have achieved cooperative consciousness and work together to nurture other developing civilizations. Chen felt something stir in her consciousness that was deeper than thought, older than language. The pack instinct that had guided humanity for 40,000 years was recognizing something familiar in this offer. How many species? She asked. Currently, 47 civilizations across this galactic arm. Each has developed their own form of cooperative consciousness. Each contributes their unique strengths to the larger community. The number was identical to the species count in their own recently formed alliance. And Chen doubted this was coincidence, and our role would be? Asked Commander Zextar. The same role humans have played in your local group, the Shaper replied. Teachers of pack consciousness. Guides for species learning to cooperate instead of compete. Protectors of developing civilizations that face threats beyond their individual capabilities. The offer was staggering. They were being invited to extend their pack protection to an entire galaxy, to help guide the evolution of civilizations across vast distances and time scales. What threats require protection on that scale? Asked Diplomat Sisrath. The Shaper's expression grew serious. The same threats that have always faced cooperative consciousness. Species that achieve technology without wisdom. Civilizations that develop power without responsibility. Entities that view cooperation as weakness to be exploited. Chen understood immediately. The galaxy contained more than just developing civilizations. It also contained species that had chosen domination over cooperation, conquest over collaboration. The pack hunts threats to the pack, she said simply. Exactly. But on a galactic scale, threats to cooperative consciousness can threaten entire star systems. The larger pack exists to protect developing civilizations from such threats and to guide them toward cooperative evolution. The command center buzzed with quiet discussion as representatives from various species considered this offer. But Chen already knew what the response would be. Pack loyalty didn't recognize arbitrary boundaries, and threats to cooperation anywhere were threats to cooperation everywhere. The Galactic Pack Alliance accepts your invitation, she said formally. We hunt together, always together. The Shaper's features shifted into an unmistakable expression of joy. Welcome to the Great Pack. Your training begins immediately. There are 12 developing civilizations in this sector that require guidance, and 3 hostile entities that must be contained. As Unity Station adjusted course to rendezvous with the Shaper vessel, Chen looked out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity's journey from pack hunters on a single world to guardians of galactic civilization was just beginning. The wolf tattoo on her arm seemed to pulse with ancient memory as she contemplated the vast hunt that lay ahead. 40,000 years of evolution had prepared humanity for this moment, not to dominate the galaxy, but to teach it how to hunt together. Somewhere in the depths of space, new threats were moving toward civilizations that had not yet learned the strength of cooperation, but they would find something waiting for them that they had never encountered before. An entire galaxy united by pack consciousness, ready to hunt together against any threat to the cooperative evolution of consciousness itself. The age of individual species competing for survival was ending. The age of galactic pack consciousness had begun, and at its heart the ancient bond between human and wolf continued to guide the hunt, just as it had for 40,000 years. Some partnerships once forged in mutual survival truly did last forever.